got Jack's Michael.
Okay.
I said, just for an hour, just for an hour.
Well, first things first, I want you to all know that there's two New Jerseys. There is New Jersey, New York, and there is New Jersey, Philadelphia. If you go from Mercer County north, you do business like they do in New York. They use attorneys. You know, you do the contract and the offer and stuff like that, but then the attorneys take over from there. From Mercer County south, it's like we do business here in Pennsylvania or in Philadelphia. They use title companies. They don't do surveys. They endorse the title insurance for the meets and bounds and the setback lines and things like that, and the endorsements. So that's first. In New Jersey, when you, pretty much listings are the same. You know, you take a listing, you use a listing contract. I always use the seller's disclosure, the Pennsylvania seller's disclosure for all my New Jersey stuff. It's much more inclusive. It's a lot better than the New Jersey seller's disclosure. But if it's not your listing, you just have to take what they give you.
If they give you one, right?
What's that?
If they give
you one. In fact, some agents and some attorneys don't like seller's disclosures, so they won't provide one. And that's unfortunate because I think you should have it on every deal. It's not a law in New Jersey, so you don't need it in New Jersey. You also don't need to provide seller net proceeds in New Jersey. Although we like to provide it, and it's easy enough to do in trend, it's not required. The listing contract is similar. If you want to charge a flat fee commission, you have to add it in there. The one we have doesn't have a spot for that. I don't think it does anyway. That's the wrong one. just like in Pennsylvania, we have a consumer notice. In New Jersey, it's called a consumer information statement. Basically says pretty much the same thing that the consumer notice says, but in New Jersey, they do not have a designated agency. There's either buyer agency, seller agency, or dual agency with disclosure, or transaction licensing. But they don't have a designated agent. So you're either a dual agent or a buyer's or a seller's agent. You have to fill that in on our forms. And it depends, I've seen them flip-flop, but one is for sellers and landlords, and the other one is for buyers. Make sure you write down Keller Williams Real Estate and the brokerage, and then make sure that they sign in the proper, whether they're buyers or sellers. Since we're talking about listings, maybe this would be in the seller's column. Then you have the listing agreement. And then, again, the agency, or, put the seller's names in there, and then Keller Williams. The amount that you're listing the property for. And here it says, it's agreed that the asking price shall be reevaluated every so many days, and you can fill that in. I usually put 30 days, because if it's not sold in 30 days, then chances are the price is too high. And then the term, and again, it's 1 year is the maximum. Now, there's different multiple listing services in New Jersey. There's Trend, which covers pretty much Mercer County, Burlington County, Camden County, Gloucester County, but it doesn't covers part of Ocean County, but there's an Monmouth Ocean County MLS. And depending on which, where the listing is, you're going to put it sometimes both in Trend and the multiple listing service for that particular area. Like there's a Cape May Board of Realtors multiple listing service, there's an Atlanta County multiple listing service, there's Monmouth Ocean County. There's another Ocean County MLS that is a sistered with Trend. I don't know if you guys ever looked, but for example, Beach Haven West, which is not on Long Beach Island, it's just off the island. All the listings are not in the Monmouth Ocean County MLS, they're in Trend or Ocean County MLS, which is sistered with Trend. So if you're looking for something in Beach Haven, you can just look in Trend. And it'll have a different MLS number. It won't start with like a 659 or whatever. It'll start with a 164 or something like that. But you're going to put the multiple listing service in the spot that, for the property, the proper one for the property.
The money we paid to get in that extra for New Jersey, does that count all these different counties you're telling us about?
In Trend, no, you're paid for Trend. But if you're going to put it in Monmouth Ocean County or Cape May or Atlantic, that's an additional multiple listing service that you have to join.
Oh, okay.
We have a shared membership in Monmouth Ocean County.
It's Monmouth
Okay.
Ocean.
Some of us have membership in Cape May or Atlantic. I forget what I have, and usually what happens is I let it lapse until I need it.
Right. so-
Okay, and then I pay for it again.
What was the email you sent out as far as what, was there the Board of Realtors or MLS? You sent out an email a couple months ago.
It was Monmouth Ocean County.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one. And that's probably the closest MLS, because Ocean County is closer to us than Atlantic or, Cape May or any of the others. So if you're gonna do business down the shore, the closest shore is, Ocean County, anywhere from Belmar down to, I guess Beach Haven. Once you get at the end of Beach Haven, the next island, I guess, is Brigantine or Atlantic City area, and that would be in the Atlantic County MLS. So put the proper MLS in there that you're gonna use. And it doesn't hurt to put it in trend, it doesn't cost you anything. I guess somebody figured out a way to put the $3.95 or the $2.95 that we charge for the flat fee commission, because you can see it there, 3% plus $3.95. This one's 3% for the buyer's agent, you split it up. And this, instead of putting 6% and then telling you who gets what, you put it in separate line items. And then inclusions and exclusions, just like the other one. Discuss the warranty, see if they want a warranty, check the one off that, they prefer. And then again, it gets signed. Make sure you put Keller Williams in where it says broker. Or it doesn't say it, how about that? Well, listing agent Howard Gottlieb, and then you can have them sign it either through Gottlieb or DocuSign. Then you have the lockbox authorization, same thing, combo. Now, make sure your lockboxes work with other e-keys if you want to use them. You have to check with the Board of Realtors in that particular area. Because if you put a super box in Monmouth, Ocean County, and it doesn't work with their key, then they can't get in your listing. So that's something that's real important. I actually was showing houses in Ocean County, and I thought my key opened one of their lockboxes, and the agent was using a Monmouth County lockbox, and it didn't open it. And fortunately, it was the seller was home at the time and just let me in. But make sure your key works. You have to call each Board of Realtors and have it activated, or call Supra. I don't remember how I did it all. It's been so long.
There's
But
a reciprocality paper, and it has to go through, it has to go through our
Right.
trend MLS.
Mhm.
It has to sign off that you're like a member in good standing, and it has to, and there's certain ones that reciprocate, and they're on actually the paper. But sometimes they take it away at the last minute, which I had happen, and
Right.
then I had to go to the office and pick up the key. You can always
yeah,
ask for that.
you had to, no, not pick up the key, but have it reprogrammed.
No,
No?
I meant go to the office of the listing agent to
Oh.
pick up the key for the house, because my super key could not be, it wasn't
Okay.
a broker here, record was not a member,
Right.
and they wouldn't allow reciprocality, they only would allow membership.
Gotcha. All
So
right.
plan ahead, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah, plan ahead, you know.
It can
And
go wrong in
and
Jersey
some of the
as well.
other MLSs are very confusing to use, especially if you're used to trend. Like Paragon is like, no, it wasn't Paragon, it was Monmouth, Ocean County. I couldn't figure out how to do an automatic email to send clients emails regularly when they get listed. So I spent hours trying to figure it out, you know. And it's just you're not used to it, so it takes longer. So just spend some time and get used to it. The lockbox authorization is, like I said, have that filled out. I particularly don't like electronic lockboxes. I like combination lockboxes. There's too many people that don't have a key, they have to run around looking for one, they don't wanna pay for it. It's money out of our pocket every year that I don't think it does anything more than cost us money. It's no safer than a regular lockbox, in my opinion. And a regular lockbox, if you have issues, you can always change the combination. Okay, or the seller can take the key out when they don't want it shown, But I prefer combination lockboxes. Seller's information sheet, I never use this, but it might be helpful for you when you're putting it into a new multiple listing system, like Monmouth or Atlantic, because I'm sorry, this is not what I'm talking about. This is just this is like a seller's authorization, but it doesn't have the seller's signature on it, so it's kind of useless. I mean, you can write it all down if you want, if you're at the house, but it really doesn't make a difference, because you'll figure out who the electric company is and who the water company is. I hate not having a mouse. And as you notice, there's no net sheet on here. There's a PA seller's clause, but there's no New Jersey one. But there is an I don't know, I guess you can use the PA seller's authorization and acceptance for the mortgage. You know, what do they call that? The authorization to obtain payoff. So you could just use a regular Pennsylvania one, it serves the same purpose. All right, so that's listings. Let's work on buyers. Well, you know what, let's go back to seller side sale. Seller's estimated cost is pretty self-explanatory. Do it in trend, because transfer tax in New Jersey, only the seller pays, the buyer doesn't pay it. And it's calculated, there's a strange calculation for it. And if you're a senior citizen, you get a different rate. It's less than the normal rate. The conveyancing application is the same thing. And the green sheet is the same thing. The seller side sale checklist, let's look at that. Now, in New Jersey, it's a little different than here. In Pennsylvania, when you take a buyer out and they want to make an offer, you write up an agreement of sale, you get a check, you do all the documentation, seller's disclosure, consumer notice, buyer's agency contract, affiliated business arrangement, all the stuff that's required. In New Jersey, when your buyer wants to make an offer, supposedly you did the consumer notice, the consumer information statement first, and the buyer agency contract. But then, you don't write the contract. You write up an offer to purchase, which is just a one-page form that says how much, the buyer's name, who the agent is, that's contingent on the mortgage, what inspections, yada, yada, and you submit that to the listing agent. And then, if it's acceptable, you ask the listing agent if they want to do the contract or they want you to do the contract. Because depending on where you are, whether it's central and northern Jersey or central and southern Jersey, some agents, their company requires the listing agent to do it. And they use a specific contract. Our contract is different than the NJAR contract. And Pete Labriola, who is the team leader at Princeton, he's the one in charge of our dot loop forms. So when you see a contract there, you'll see that it's a different contract or agreement of sale.
That one-page document, is it in dot loop?
It is. Let's get it for you. Let's go back to. ourselves, but let's look at that form. You all know about version now documents?
Right.
Offer to purchase. Here's the offer to purchase. Basically, it says the buyers and their address, offer to purchase the property, and the address of the property at a price with an expected closing date. The initial deposit, additional deposit, mortgage proceeds, balance at closing, what's included, what's not included, the mortgage amount and the type of mortgage, and then whatever inspections you want. And then just sign it, send it over to the listing agent. And you might get this as a listing agent. And if it's agreeable to your seller, then you and the buyer's agent determine who's gonna do the contract. I prefer the other agent do the contract all the time. It's just easier. And that way, it doesn't waste my time when I do something that they don't like, you know? So, and I review the contracts so that I know what they say and that, you know, I'm not worried about what's in it. Because they usually use the NJAR form, and each county has their own, like Burlington County has their own contract. NJAR has a different contract. So this way, if you're dealing with an agent and their office has a policy, we don't really have a policy as to which contract to use. If you're writing it up, we prefer to use our contract, which is,
The PA one, you saying?
what's
Or
that?
The New Jersey one.
The New Jersey contract. Also, another thing about Pennsylvania, we all use PAR forms. Every office uses a PAR form. So we have a form for almost every type of situation. Change in terms, you know, reply to inspection, post and pre-settlement possession of the property, you know, almost every contingency that you can think of, we have a form for. Well, I use a lot of Pennsylvania forms for my New Jersey deals. So like a reply to inspection, I'll fill that out for my New Jersey deal and send it over to the listing office, okay? Because it's a valid form, you know, and according to Pete Labriola, I verified this with him, all of our forms in Pennsylvania are completely legal in New Jersey. So you can use any of the forms in Pennsylvania for New Jersey. I wouldn't go about using the Pennsylvania Association of Realtors Agreement of Sale, because there's some differences in that. But for the most part, all of the addendums that we use are perfectly acceptable. Change in listing contract, like if you want to extend the expiration date or change the price, you know, you can use a Pennsylvania form. And I prefer using the Pennsylvania form because it's written by attorneys that really thought out the wording of it. Where when you type something, you're actually acting as a lawyer and you don't have a license to practice law. Let's go look at the contract. I'll put that in here.
All those documents are found on the version now, correct?
Everything is found in version now, yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. was not a class on dot loop, so I'm not filling all that stuff in. But if you do fill it in, I guess you all know how to use dot loop, it'll fill it in the contract for you. This is the first page of every New Jersey contract. And it explains that there's an attorney review period, and then the real estate brokers and the transaction functioning under agency relationships as defined in the contract of sale. You won't get any legal advice from us, we only know about real estate. The contract is the most important part of the transaction. And it becomes binding 3 days after it's signed. There's a 3-day attorney review period, and only an attorney can waive that period. And attorneys, many times, will send you a letter stating they're terminating the contract unless you do these things. And usually those things are there to protect their client, and they're usually perfectly acceptable. So you just do an addendum adding those things, or maybe the attorney sends it in an addendum form, and then you could just have your client sign the proper spot, whether the buyer or the seller. Okay? But the attorneys always have something to say about the contract. And then,
Howard, can't the seller waive that attorney thing? That
no,
3
the
days?
seller may not waive an attorney review period.
Okay,
A buyer may not waive it.
okay.
Only an attorney can waive it for their client.
They don't have to use an
But
attorney.
they don't,
I
that's
was
what you
gonna
meant
say,
there.
they don't have to.
Oh, they don't have to use an attorney, no. In fact, I would say 90% of my deals, they don't use an attorney.
Whether it's north or south, you don't use an attorney.
More so in the north than the south, but I know a lot of people don't wanna pay an attorney.
Right,
You know, they just, they don't feel the necessity.
okay,
I never advise them not to,
right,
because I don't ever wanna be in that position.
right.
But, I tell them, check with family and friends whether you should use an attorney or not.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, if you're interested, if you wanna use an attorney, go ahead. I'm perfectly fine with it. In fact, my job's easier when you use an attorney, because I don't have to do anything except send a commission statement and show up at settlement. In fact, I know agents that don't even show up at settlement. They send a commission statement and then check gets mailed to them. They don't even go to the settlement with their client, which I find unbelievable. Why would, this is the last moment that you have to make an impression on your client to get referrals. Why wouldn't you go to settlement with them? But there's a lot of New Jersey agents that don't do that. And that's up to them, how they want to conduct their business. But no, lawyers are not required. And I'd say most of my clients don't use lawyers. Most of my clients are referrals too. They trust me and they know I've been in the business a long time. So they really have a lot of faith that I know what I'm doing. But attorneys can do other stuff too. They can order title, they can order surveys, which it says right there, and they represent you at the closing. And then what the risks are if you don't use an attorney, and whether you use an attorney is up to you, it's your decision. And this is the first page of every New Jersey real estate contract. And that's why you don't use a Pennsylvania contract. Then the contract is pretty self-explanatory. It's between the buyer and the seller. Their addresses are on there. The property address, the municipality, the county, the state, the tax ID number. And then the way you pay for it, initial deposit, whatever it is, the additional deposit at a particular date, and then the mortgage amount. And then you add up those three and you subtract it from the total purchase price and you put the balance at the bottom. Or mortgage amount, and then all of those add up to the total purchase price. And then, or trust account from an attorney, broker, title company, closing. That's the difference between the purchase price and the other three items. So just make sure they add up to the full purchase price. And then, basically it asks you, is it contingent on the sale of any other real estate? Yes or no? You check off yes or no. Is or is not. Deposit money will be held. A lot of companies nowadays don't want to hold escrow. I know our Princeton office doesn't like to hold escrow. They will if they have to, but they prefer not to. So usually the buyer's agent will hold it. Or they'll just give it directly to the title company, or they'll give it to the attorney for the buyer or the attorney for the seller.
A lot
There
of
are-
times the attorneys want it.
Yeah, a lot of times the attorney, if there is an attorney involved,
Yeah.
sometimes there's no attorney involved. But, like in Princeton, they don't want it. I mean, and it's a hassle for them, it's a hassle for the MCA, it's a hassle for our MCA. And in Pennsylvania, it doesn't have to be the listing company. I've had title companies hold the escrow, you know? I had one client who was in Austria, and she wired money to our title company. She wired the full amount of the purchase price plus closing costs to our title company, because she was gonna be out of the country when we made settlement. So she wired it before she left. Then, you know, the title company just used it, and whatever was left over, they mailed it back to her. Is it contingent upon a mortgage or not? Is it FHA, VA, conventional, or in New Jersey, there are a lot of agricultural loans, Department of Agriculture. FDAC or something. I think it's an FDAC loan, I forget what kind, I forget the initials. But it's an agricultural loan, and certain counties, are rural enough that they allow, you know, the federal government allows these type of loans. They're 100% financing, and the seller can pay, I think, 6% or all of the closing costs, but even 6% in New Jersey is too much. Closing costs are not that expensive in New Jersey because the buyer doesn't pay transfer tax. So usually 6% is more than enough to cover all the closing costs. So you can actually get a buyer into a house in New Jersey in certain areas with no money out of their pocket. And I've done it on a couple of occasions. In fact, I did it in the 55 and over development. Do you know John McClintock's teammate?
James?
Who?
James.
James. I sold James' mother a house before James was in the business, and she took an FDAC loan or whatever.
The farm loan for agriculture.
The Department of Agricultural loan.
Right.
And she got in with no money out of her pocket. Okay?
Do you have to use the land for agricultural purposes, or?
No, this was an over 55 condo development. It just has to be in the county where it's allowed.
Wow.
Okay? So Burlington County is one of those counties where they allow it. There's a lot of farmland in Burlington County. If you drive through it, Burlington County is a really big county. And, you know, once you get outside the township and the city of Burlington, it's all farmland. Anyway, put down the particular mortgage that they're going for. If it's seller financing, if it's private financing, whatever it is, fill it in. And then put the amount and mortgage commitment date and your settlement date. And then put down whether a seller's disclosure is available for the property. You know, so like I said, it's not required in New Jersey, so that's up to each individual listing agent and seller. Put property, and this is interesting, it says all other items listed in the MLS number. So you could just put the MLS number, just make sure you keep a copy of the MLS the day you write the contract, because agents can change it, they can take stuff out, and if you don't have a copy of the one that you wrote the day of, then the washer and dryer may not be included, and you may be paying for somebody else's washer and dryer that will never wash or dry your clothes, okay? And then the inspections are, you don't really fill in which inspections they do, they're entitled to do any of them. You just have to put the number of days from the time the attorney review ends by which they have to do their inspections. If it's a private well, if it's in a flood zone, if it's in an airport zone, if there's underground storage tanks, lead-based paint, same thing goes in New Jersey as does in Pennsylvania with lead-based paint. If it was built prior to 1978, you have to fill out a lead-based paint disclosure. The seller and the buyer has to sign it. And there's the disclosure. But fill out the separate one that says, use the one we use in Pennsylvania, fill that out. This basically says the same thing, but I like to have it separate when I'm reviewing your paperwork. I may or may not accept that depending on the way it's filled out. So if you use the other one, I'm gonna accept it.
The buyers, which one of the three that you're talking about right now?
Well,
Buyers,
the lead-based paint disclosure.
no, I meant the one you said.
The one we use in Pennsylvania, that's a national form, that's not a Pennsylvania form, that's a national form. So just fill out the national form and make sure they get a pamphlet on lead-based paint. You know, the same rules apply in New Jersey as they do in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I started uploading that as a PDF and having my buyers sign that now, just
Right.
because. Yeah, because there's no place for them to sign on the form we send out.
Right.
So I started uploading it as a PDF and having my buyers sign it.
Actually, there is a spot on the lead-based paint that says that they received a pamphlet. It says it here too.
Yeah, not on our forms, in Gottlieb, the lead-based paint disclosure form.
Oh,
There's
really?
no place to sign. You send it to them, there's no place to sign.
Ah, okay. See, in here, it says buyer has received a pamphlet, protect your family from lead-based paint.
Right.
Anyway, make sure you fill it out properly, make sure you use the separate lead-based paint disclosure form, because nobody reads the contract.
Right. Well, that's, you're right, in our actual contract, it's in there that they initialed off on it, but the actual one I sent to them, that they have to read through, I'll make them sign that too.
The pamphlet doesn't have a place to sign,
Right.
but,
The
you know,
agreement itself does,
on
right.
the agreement of
Right.
sale it does.
Then you know how some properties, especially bank-owned properties, say that the buyer's responsible for the UNO, or in New Jersey, they call it a CO? Right here, it says who's responsible in the contract. So check off who's gonna be responsible, the buyer or the seller. Generally, it's the seller, like in Pennsylvania, but some as-is properties and some bank-owned properties and short sales, the buyer's gonna be responsible. And in New Jersey, it's basically fire extinguishers and smoke detectors. You know, they just have to have the proper smoke detectors and fire extinguishers in there. They don't really check, you know, broken windows and concrete and all that stuff like they do in Pennsylvania. I mean, every township is different, but, you know, check with the township, or borough, or city, or whatever, to find out what's required. Trenton is brutal. Trenton comes out, they think they're, you know, the old Bristol, you know? And in Pennsylvania, we have a law that says that they cannot prohibit you from occupying the property unless they condemn it. So they have to issue you a temporary UNO, okay? They cannot fine you if you occupy it, they have to issue you temporary. Falls will argue that with you, but Falls is gonna lose. Somebody's gonna take them to court and they're gonna lose. Bristol already already got rid of their inspection, and so did Ben Salem. You no longer have to do UNO inspections there. New Jersey is different. They can not issue you a CO, which could be a problem for your mortgage company. So make sure that, you know, the property is habitable and that your buyer is willing to do whatever work is, you know, done, you know, to get the CO if the buyer's responsible. Then there's the declaration of license and business relationships. This is where you put down your name, the company name, the address, and whether we're a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, a disclosed dual agent, or a transaction agent. We don't do transaction agency here, and I don't know why, but we don't. But make sure you fill it in properly. And I hate bouncing back paperwork to you guys, but if you don't check off buyer's agent or seller's agent, I'm bouncing it back. So make sure you do it right. And then you have the commission right in the contract. So, and then, I don't know if you guys ever looked in New Jersey listings, Dee, I'm sure you've seen it, but the commission is 3% minus $50, or 3% minus $75, or 3% minus $25, or 3% minus $100. No one has ever satisfactorily explained to me what that money is, what that $100 is, or what that $25 is.
I know what it is their office transaction fee.
It is, but it used to be because you had to pay to put your listings in the multiple listing service, and they used to, but That's what they said it was for, but basically it's their flat fee commission or whatever, I don't know. I really don't know nobody ever explained it so that I was satisfied.
So who does it go to?
Goes to the listing company. Right, so it says, I'm just saying broker commission is 3% of the selling price less a fee of. And I don't know why they do it that way, but I charge $3.95 for my flat fee commission to a buyer, so when they take away $125 or $75 or $100, doesn't really affect me, because I'm getting $3.95 to cover that. $2.95, whatever you guys charge. And then again, remarks. You could put things in here. Try not to put anything in there unless it's really important. And if it's really important, maybe you should get an attorney to word it, because whatever you write in there is a legal binding contract, and you're really not a lawyer. So, if, for example, you know, the pool will be open, you know, something like that, you could put that in there, but make sure you word it really well so it's not ambiguous. But you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing it on a different form, a par form, or have an attorney do it. The pool should be open and operational, whatever. I just don't like when agents start writing stuff, you know, in their own words, because it can be misconstrued to mean something else by different parties. And judges don't like it either. And then it talks about the attorney review period, the counting time. You count 3 days from the date of delivery of the signed contract to the buyer and seller. You do not count Saturdays, Sundays, or legal holidays. And you can agree to extend the 3-day attorney review period. If an attorney and then notice of disapproval disapproves the contract, they must notify the brokers and the party named in the contract within the 3-day period. Otherwise, the contract will be legally binding as written. And again, they do send letters disapproving the contract unless you make these changes. And then it's up to your clients to negotiate those changes if they're agreeable or not. Usually they are. Usually they just put dumb stuff in there to protect their client. You know, closing will be held at the buyer's attorney's office or something like that.
Once
Alright.
you,
Oh, go ahead.
once you agree to those things that the attorney asks, is there another 3-day review period, or that's it?
Yeah. Every time you do a change in the contract, there's another 3-day attorney review period. But the attorney can put in that addendum that this ends the attorney review period. So that wouldn't extend the 3 days, okay? Because an attorney can end the attorney review period. So, and generally attorneys do that. But if he didn't say that, then it does extend another 3 days. Every time you do an addendum, that addendum needs 3-day attorney review period. So like if you extend settlement, you know, let's say you're supposed to settle on July 31st and they're not gonna get their mortgage and then you need till August 15th, and you do an addendum extending settlement to August 15th, attorney review period for that particular clause starts when it's delivered to the particular parties and doesn't count weekends and holidays.
Do you have any idea what the attorneys charge for that?
Different charges. I mean, I've seen $1,000, $1,500, $750. You know, it depends on what they're doing. A lot of times they won't charge that much because they want to order title because they get commission on the title. So
Do you normally use the attorney's title company if they go with an attorney?
if the attorney wants to, I ask the attorney, can I use my title company? If they say yes, I use Bucks County Abstract, which actually First Partners Abstract because,
Right. Sure.
but it goes to our profit here. So, so I prefer to use our title company. But if the attorney says, no, I'll order title, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm not gonna fight with the attorney. So, and that's the contract. As in Pennsylvania, when I first got in this business, the agreement of sale was one page you filled in and a back page that had all the things about title and recovery fund and, you know, stuff that was important to be in the contract. Now we have a 13-page contract, or 14-page contract, whatever it happens to be. Always read the contract. Know what your contract says, it guides the whole transaction. And just as in New Jersey as in Pennsylvania, read the contract, print it out and read it. Make sure you understand it. Same thing with the listing contract and the buyer's agency contract. Those are things that you need to read and be familiar with. So when a buyer or seller asks you a question, you have the answer. But the contract is the most important thing. It's the whole transaction. So you need to make sure you know what it says in there. So the first thing you do when you get your New Jersey real estate license is read the contract. And I would also read the Burlington contract and the NJAR contract. Make sure you know what they say.
When you say Burlington, what's that other word you're saying? What do you say?
NJAR, New Jersey Association of Realtors, NJAR. Just like PAR, Pennsylvania Association of
Right,
Realtors,
okay.
NJAR.
Okay, Burlington, okay,
Okay, it's New Jersey Association of Realtors, that's the state association.
okay.
And they're not a real strong association from what I understand. But Pennsylvania really has their act together when it comes to our association realtors. Not so much in New Jersey. Anyway, so that's basically seller, buyer, same thing, contract. Let's see if we can find that. Also, you can use a Pennsylvania Association of Realtors Buyer's Financial Information Sheet, a BFI, in New Jersey. I'm going to show you the lead-based pay anyway. It says Pennsylvania, but it's national. It's the same thing all over the country. See, it says it there, Jim.
No, I'm talking about the pamphlet, the actual.
Oh, the pamphlet,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But it says that they got it.
Right.
This is the initial here, and it says they got it. But, yeah, it doesn't hurt to have an initial in the pamphlet. But that's, make sure you fill all that in. And a lot of people will put their company name in there. So I'm gonna bounce it back to you if our company name's not in there. So make sure you fill out the company name and make sure the other company's in there too, if you're dealing with a co-op.
Doesn't that fill it in automatically? If you've got,
Not always, and that's why it's not in there sometimes, and I gotta bounce it back. But,
Even if you get it from the other one, you can just do add tax and stretch it out, put their name in it.
right. Okay, basically similar to a listing contract between the buyer and Keller Williams Real Estate, and the terms, no more than a year. Compensation, 3% plus $295 or whatever, flat fee commission. Fill it in whatever you charge. If you charge a non-refundable retainer fee, which I don't know anybody that does, but you're entitled to do that if you like, if you can get away with it. And then your name, and whether your client will allow you to be a dual agent or not. I always check off buyer agent with dual, disclosed dual agency. And then sign it.
Have you ever charged a retainer fee?
No.
Never.
No, you know what? I don't even do a buyer agency contract until I'm doing the offer from them. My clients are referrals that trust me and stick with me and are loyal to me. So I don't, and the only reason you really fill out a buyer's agency contract is you think they're gonna cheat on you, and then you would have to sue them anyway, and I'm never gonna sue anybody for my commission. My wife actually showed a house to people that they bought with another agent while she had an agency contract with them, and they stored furniture in my house. And my wife didn't sue them for commission, and she was perfectly within her right to do so, and she chose not to do it. So the only reason, the only reason you sign a contract is so that you can collect or sue.
Shake up the furniture.
No, he didn't want the furniture. Get it out of my house. It was actually gone before they actually bought the house. But my wife actually showed them the house before they made an offer on it.
So why didn't she sue?
That's a good question. You're gonna have to ask my wife that question, because I sure certainly would have. She was actually heartbroken, because she worked with these people, she made calls to Canada when they were up there, and there's no reason why they shouldn't have liked her and gone through with her. She was really hurt that they did that to her. And I was really mad that I allowed them to store furniture in my house, and then they went and did that. So,
Karma.
yeah.
They get it.
Anyway, so that's, you know, like I said, you know, when you're new in the business, they teach you, nowadays, they teach you, sit down with your client, have a conversation, pick their brain, find out what they want, what they need, what they're qualified for, make sure they sign a consumer notice or a consumer information statement, a buyer's agency contract, and then you take them out, you use scripts, and you do what you're supposed to, and that's the way you do things. I'm real old school. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I think it is 30. I'm in my 30th year. So, and all my clients are my friends and relatives and referrals. They already trust me. They're not going to go with somebody else. I just sold a house for $405,000 or something in Northampton, in Ivyland. These guys, you know, I've sold houses to them several times, and they're never going to use somebody else. So I don't feel the need. I mean, I have to do the paperwork, so I do it. But I didn't feel the need before I run around showing them houses that they're going to run around and cheat on me. Here's another thing about buyers. If when you take them out, they don't find something that they want to make an offer on, you must make the next appointment when they're available next. So, are you available tomorrow? Are you available Friday? Are you available Sunday? When's your next available time? That way they don't have time to cheat on you. They don't have time to run around with another agent, because the next available time they have to go is when you're taking them. Okay, so that was a trick that I learned many, many years ago. You always make the next appointment, and you always make it for when they're next available. That way you don't have to worry about them cheating when you're buying from another agent. Let's talk a little bit about rentals. Same thing, consumer notice, buyer's agency, or listing contract. However, when it comes time to fill out the application, there's a specific New Jersey application. Let's see, New Jersey rental, let's see what's in here. There's a rental listing agreement. There's the lease application. And in New Jersey, you can only charge 1.5 times the rent for security deposit. There's no first month, last month, or no security. It's first month and a month and a half security. That's it. You can't take a pet deposit. You can't take advance rent. First month, and a month and a half security, that's it. So be careful when you fill out the contract.
So you can't do the last month, you're saying?
Nope. First month, and a month and a half security deposit, that's the max. Now, if they have a pet, you can charge more rent. So let's say, you know, they have a dog, and you wanna charge an extra $50 a month. You can charge the extra $50 a month, you know, but you cannot charge any more than 1.5 months security deposit. And here's the application for rent. This is New Jersey Association of Realtor Standard Form. It has all the references, their car, their date of birth, their employment. And you do the same thing, you know, that you do for Pennsylvania. You check with their landlord, you run their credit. Basically, it's similar to a Pennsylvania Association of Realtors lease, a little different, but pretty much the same information. Again, read the contract. This is the contract. The landlord, the tenant, the addresses, the property address information, the term, starting date, the rent per month, due and payable on the first of the month, it should be paid to who, the initial deposit, and here it says security deposit, and it even says there, security deposit which cannot exceed 1.5 months' rent. So it says it right there. And then it has the whole rule about the security deposit. And where you have to put it, and whether you pay interest, and yada yada. Late payment fees, if it's not paid by a particular date, processing fee if a check bounces. Basically, who pays the utilities. Pretty much the same thing as Pennsylvania, but read it, so you know the differences. There's subtle differences, but there are differences. The agency disclosures, again, same thing as in the contract for sale, and what the commission's going to propose. And what the commission's going to be. And then sign it. Questions? Well, that's the difference between New Jersey and Pennsylvania. You have New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, New Jersey. It really is different. Like I said, anywhere from Mercer County north, a lot of times they use attorneys, they get surveys done, and then from Mercer County south, and Mercer's mixed. You can have both in Mercer. But Mercer County south, they don't use attorneys, they don't do surveys. Just have to work with the other agent and figure out how you want to do it.
I have a buyer from New York. Yesterday he asked me the question, should I bring my lawyer with me to the closing, which is next month? And I told him there was no need for it.
The time for his lawyer to be there was when he signed the contract, not after.
But my advice was okay to him, that we don't need
Well,
lawyers in
I
Pennsylvania.
never say that we don't need. I always say it's up to you if you want to pay the attorney. I said, I can't give you legal advice, but I'm a real estate expert. So you can rely on my expertise in real estate, but if you want legal assistance, then you need an attorney. But I never tell somebody not to use an attorney. Because that, if something gets screwed up, he told me that I didn't need an attorney. That's what he's telling the judge. And that's when you're in trouble.
At a closing, you shouldn't need that, right?
You feel like
Depends.
you need, if they feel like they need one, they should get one. If they
Right.
don't,
So I should revise my advice to
I have an attorney coming to my closing today.
Seriously? From where? From Jersey?
So my seller's attorney.
sometimes these attorneys are not real estate attorneys and they really truly don't know what they're doing or saying. I've had two.
In Pennsylvania, it's brutal. The attorneys don't, they think they can do real estate, they have no clue. And the first thing they do is attack your flat fee commission,
Right.
Yep.
okay? And my answer to that is, counselor, I have a contract with my client.
I actually had an attorney, he's the most honest attorney I ever saw. The lady worked for the city of Philadelphia, they give free legal, and the attorney was there. She said, I thought, I said, you really don't need one. She goes, well, it's free, I'm gonna have him there anyway. First of all, he gets there late, everything pretty much done to sign, and he even told her, he says, to be honest with you, I don't really know why I'm here. I am not a real estate attorney, but I'm only here because you requested me. I swear to God, he told her that. And she goes, then why did you come? She goes, because you requested it.
Right.
And he said, I don't know. He says, your agent is going to know a lot more about this than I am.
When I worked for Remax Eastern,
You were high-fiving.
the broker of record was Dennis Culp. Dennis Culp was hired by the Philadelphia Firefighters Union to give their firefighters free real estate advice or expertise. And they paid Dennis to be that. He made like 80 grand a year just to be there, or 60 grand a year, whatever it was, just to be their real estate advisor. And firefighters, and maybe even police too, but I know it was firefighters,
Okay.
used to come to our office all the time and ask us advice. Or to call him on the phone or whatever, and it was free to them. But he was the broker of record of Remax Eastern, and the firefighters union felt it was more important to have a real estate broker like Dennis than an attorney. So they paid him instead of an attorney. So,
See, what he told me yesterday was that, his union provides him with a free attorney. And in New York and North New Jersey, they do use attorneys.
that's why I said there's two different New Jerseys. There's New York and New Jersey, and there's Philadelphia, New Jersey. Listen, tell them, you're welcome to bring your attorney. If you feel, and if you're not paying for it, you feel the need, be my guest, bring your attorney. All right. Any questions?
One other question.
Yes.
You said something about, and I don't know how to do that. You said you could send them the contract either to sign by a document or DocuSign. How can I send something from Docu through DocuSign? Is there a way around it or something?
Well, here's how I do it. I don't like that loop. So what I do is like the affiliated business arrangement disclosure
Here's the thing.
is not,
If you get
in
it
zip
already
forms.
when it was signed,
so I fill it out in .loop. I download it to my
gross.
drive, and then I go to DocuSign, and I upload it to DocuSign and put the signature spots for it. It's an extra step, you don't need to do that.
So you need to have a DocuSign account as well?
Yes, but everybody that's a member of the Bucks County Association of Realtors gets zip forms and a DocuSign account for free.
And how do I find out where that is?
Just call the Board of Realtors.
And they should be able to tell me.
Mhm.
And DocuSign is the attachment is the PDF contract or PDF form?
Yeah, the other thing with DocuSign, I believe that you can send a JPEG, where in .loop you can't upload a JPEG. Like those receipts that you sent me, they're all JPEGs.
Right.
You know, they're not, and
Really?
if you needed to convert it to a
What's
JPEG,
it
to a
say?
PDF, you have to print it to a PDF. Okay, you guys are okay?
Yes.
No questions?
Good, all right.
All right. And if you have questions during the course of the transaction, feel free to ask me.
By the way, that that phone call was just coming in,